Guys, since the NFL draft is now over, I will now give the draft grades for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll explain why and go into each detail of every football player that's drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, so understand when I'm giving my draft grades. Overall, I have to give the Dallas Cowboys a draft grade of a B, and that's really harsh for them picking number 4 overall, but I'll tell you exactly why. And this type of B is almost like a B- type of B. I give like an 83%, so kind of like a little solid B. But the reason why I'm giving this is basically the Dallas Cowboys picked out of luxury. Now, the number 4th overall pick, the first-round pick that they spent, is Ezekiel Elliott. Now, there's reasons why I thought that Jalen Ramsey should have been picked at that level, and I'll put that video right here, and also give you analysis of the difference between DeMarco Murray and Ezekiel Elliott, and I really break that down, so I'll put that in the video up above as well. But guys, realistically, with the number 4 pick overall, it was basically a luxury pick. The Dallas Cowboys needs entering the draft or finding a backup quarterback that you can develop, a defensive end, and the corner position. Now, even though we addressed the corner position in the last year, we still need that position. We didn't really address those needs until later on in the draft, so I'm going to get into each detail and break it down. Let's first start with Ezekiel Elliott. This was purely a luxury pick. Now, is Ezekiel Elliott going to make the Dallas Cowboys offense look a lot better in the running game? Absolutely, and the running game of 2014 should be returning back to Dallas. But we already had capable running backs. Alfred Morris, I want you to pay attention to this. Alfred Morris, since 2011, he has been the 8th leading rusher in the NFL. Okay, Alfred Morris is not a slouch. He put together 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So by no means do we need to pick a running back at number 4 overall. Actually, I think corner was more of a pressing need or defensive end. Now, guys, that's what I'm talking about right there with the B grade. Now, Ezekiel Elliott has huge upside. He's only 20 years old. He's only touched the ball in his collegiate career 650 times. This includes rushes and also receiving yards. So when you compare that to DeMarco Murray, who had a heck of a lot more carries in college and throughout his collegiate career, DeMarco Murray had 916 touches before he even left the NFL. Again, look back to that video. But this purely, with picking Ezekiel Elliott, was a luxury pick. Also, we had Darren McFadden. Darren McFadden last year, despite not starting all 16 games, he only started guys like 12 or 13 games last season, and Darren McFadden was the 5th leading rusher in the NFL last year. Let this sink in. He was the 5th leading rusher in the NFL last year. Behind the likes of Adrian Peterson and Doug Martin, could you imagine if Darren McFadden actually was a starter for all 16 games if there was no Joseph Randle? He might have been I'm not saying he would be in the top of the running backs, but he probably would have finished somewhere as the 3rd leading rusher behind Doug Martin and Adrian Peterson for overall rushing last year. This is the reason why the Dallas Cowboys this is not a need pick. It was more of a luxury pick. So we kind of just accentuated our strengths with the first-round pick. But certainly, I don't mind the pick with Ezekiel Elliott. I do like it. He could be arguably one of the best top offensive players in this draft besides the quarterback position. And he probably is going to be. Also, running backs acclimate to the NFL a lot better. Stats prove that very much so. As opposed to other positions like wide receiver or corner, the transition is simpler. Look at Todd Gurley last year. So that's with the overall pick. What you have to also like, comparing DeMarco Murray to Ezekiel Elliott, there's some similarities. Both stand 6 foot tall. And you look at if you look at Ezekiel Elliott in his combine, he ran a 4.47. Now, DeMarco Murray ran it a little faster at the combine. DeMarco Murray's combine speed was a 4.41. So those are the little differences between the two. The weight's almost the same. So Ezekiel Elliott's 6 foot tall, 225 pounds. And DeMarco Murray's also 6 foot tall, 227 pounds. So realistically, Ezekiel Elliott does amplify DeMarco Murray, but DeMarco Murray was a little bit faster of a running back, believe it or not. Even though when you look at tapes of Ezekiel Elliott and highlights, and again, I'll show you a video of Ezekiel Elliott highlights. I'll put it right up there for you can see it. But you're looking at Ezekiel Elliott's highlights, he looks fast. faster than his combine speed. I mean, 4.47 for a guy that's 6 foot tall and 225 pounds. That's pretty darn good. And so him and DeMarco Murray are very comparable in size when you talk about size. Very, very comparable. But this was a pure luxury pick. Let's look at pick number 2. Round 2. Can the Cowboys ever get round 2 right? DeMarcus Lawrence, he hasn't proven anything. And you also look at Randy Gregory. What has he proven? He hasn't done anything besides, well, get suspended for 4 games. At least DeMarco Lawrence shows a little bit of promise, but we've been really missing the number 2 spot. And this is the reason why I'm giving the Dallas Cowboys a B. We needed something to help us this year. I love Jaylon Smith. In fact, the Dallas Cowboys would never had a chance to get Jaylon Smith had he been healthy. There's no way. He would have been arguably among the top defenders, maybe besides Jalen Ramsey, but realistically that would have been like flipping a coin. Jaylon Smith would have probably been the number 1 defensive player, and the Dallas Cowboys wouldn't have had a chance at him. But here's the thing about that. He doesn't help us this year. We don't know how he's going to be healthy. We don't know what his health is going to be like long term. The really good thing about this, and I go over this again, I'll put another video up. I keep on putting that up, but I'll put another video up of Jaylon Smith. Team physician Dan Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys was actually one of the surgeons repairing Jaylon Smith's knee after the Fiesta Bowl. So we have a little bit of insight as to what Jaylon Smith's health was like. That's the reason why I do stick with the B grade for the Dallas Cowboys. Even though Jaylon Smith cannot help the Dallas Cowboys right now this season, it's looking like he's not going to play, and reports are coming out, basically almost Jaylon Smith himself is admitted he's probably not going to play this year. But we don't know how he's going to fully recover. We just do not know. It's like a Peyton Manning nerve, his neck injury. I'm not comparing the two exactly, but you don't know. Is Jaylon Smith, are we only going to be able to get 3, 4, 5, 6 years out of Jaylon Smith? We just don't know right now. But certainly his talent level is going to be great if he can come back to his form that he did in his college self. So Jaylon Smith out of Notre Dame, rock solid pick at number 2. But again, it's a chancy pick, and we really are missing on our number 2 picks. The second round has not been our friend lately. We've been hitting the first round picks, but the second round, not too good. Where we start really addressing the needs is realistically with the third pick, and that's with Maliek Collins. Now, if you look at Maliek Collins, he's a defensive tackle. What most people don't know is that he actually was a teammate of Randy Gregory. Yes, they were teammates in college. Maliek Collins, defensive tackle. Now, we addressed the defensive tackle position with Cedric Thornton coming in this year from the Philadelphia Eagles at the defensive tackle position. And this is really when I started going, finally the Dallas Cowboys are addressing needs. Round 1, they didn't address a need. Round 2, they didn't address a need. And by the way, as I'm talking, Sean Lee just had knee surgery. So, again, this year. So, we finally addressed in round 3 a need. Defensive tackle, but it's not a defensive end. But Maliek Collins shows huge upside, and again, I'll show a video of Maliek Collins, and you can look for yourself at how good he can be. He runs down runners. He's very good in the run game. I mean, you can see him basically in the center of the field and just completely tracking down a running back, completely just shaking off a tackle and going right after a running back. So I'll put those highlights above right there from Maliek Collins. That's really it. If he can help Randy Gregory at all, just come back to Randy Gregory. Can you come back to your college form and just play? Don't get suspended. We just really need a defensive end, and we don't address that finally until the 4th round. And this is the reason why I give my B grade. Address this need until the 4th round, and Charles Tapper, defensive end. We really don't address his need. Yeah, he looks promising, but is he going to be an instant starter? No, I think Maliek Collins, going back to the 3rd round, is actually going to crack this rotation and actually could be a formidable starter in the future. Just look at his tape. Again, I'll post that video, but just look at his tape. His highlights just look good. He looks explosive. His numbers did go down in college. They kind of did go down. He looked very promising early on in college, but his numbers did go down. But Maliek Collins, to me, at the 3rd round pick, I think that's really where the Dallas Cowboys struck in this round. And I think they found a gem in the 6th round, which I'll eventually get to. The Dallas Cowboys, with their other 4th round pick, their second one, was Dak Prescott. Now, Dak Prescott, if you look at his physique, it's a pretty good physique. He's 6'2" and a quarter of an inch, and he weighs 226 pounds. And it's not a Tony Romo, 220 pounds. If you see Tony Romo, I've always said this. I think Tony Romo needs to hit the weight room. He's not a solid 220. When you look at Dak Prescott, if you look at his physique alone, and he's got a strong arm, I'm not saying he's the next Russell Wilson, but he's got a Russell Wilson-like physique. You know, he's really just compact, really tight with his muscle. He's got nice muscle tone, and he's got a strong arm. But here's the thing about Dak Prescott. He was actually the Dallas Cowboys' third choice at quarterback. That's right. He was the third choice at quarterback. Realistically, the Dallas Cowboys were trying to trade to get Paxton Lynch in the first round. They were trying to trade up. Denver actually beat the Cowboys to the punch, and the Denver Broncos traded up and got Paxton Lynch. Actually, John Elway had Paxton Lynch ahead of Jared Goff on their draft board. That's right. People were that high on Paxton Lynch. And again, you can go back to a video and I'll show you where I talk about Jalen, Ramsey, Paxton Lynch before the draft. So this is before the draft. It's not hindsight. And I go through that very quickly. So Dak Prescott, even though I just said about his physique and he can have this upside and he's got some strength, again, it's the third choice. It's kind of like a girl deciding between three guys to go out on a date with, and by default, you just get the date because the other two guys just didn't show up. That's basically how we picked Dak Prescott. No team was trying to jump ahead. Remember, I told you, the Denver Broncos basically jumped ahead of the Dallas Cowboys and it took Paxton Lynch. They actually were trading up. The Cowboys were trying to trade up into the first round and do the same thing. The Denver Broncos beat them to the punch. The same thing happened with Connor Cook, the Dallas Cowboys' second choice at quarterback. The Oakland Raiders, even with Derek Carr, with their starting quarterback, a young Derek Carr, coming off a good season, the Raiders did the same thing. They jumped ahead and traded ahead in the fourth round before the Cowboys could pick, and they picked Connor Cook. So the Dallas Cowboys were left with Dak Prescott. Even though he has great stats, that just is a tall telling sign of the Dallas Cowboys. This was their third choice for a backup quarterback to Tony Romo and develop. And that's kind of a little bit scary if you think about it. And it really is. And also other teams weren't jumping ahead to get Dak Prescott. So even though his measurables look really good, that's my opinion with Dak Prescott. I hate to say it is what it is, but hopefully he'll develop into a good football player. And that also played a role in my B grade. We didn't have a fifth round, so let's jump in the sixth round, and I think this is really the diamond in the rough. If you look at the corner that we got, it's Anthony Brown out of Purdue, and did he look really phenomenal. At the NFL Combine, 4.3 speed. He runs a 4.35. Also, in other private workouts, he ran a 4.33. Either way, however you break it down, he's got 4.3 speed. Also, what's impressive about him is that he stands 5'11" and he weighs 192 pounds. So not really the biggest corner. He's not a Richard Sherman. He's not the biggest corner, but I can really see him. Look at his highlights, and I'll put his highlights right up there so you can see it. If you look at his highlights, he's very feisty. And also at the NFL Combine, what's great, at 192 pounds, he repped in the Combine 225 pounds 19 times. So he had 19 reps on 225 pounds. That is really, really impressive for a cornerback. He was the second strongest corner in the draft, and he was the second fastest corner in the 40-yard dash in this year's NFL draft. So with 4.3 speed and a lot of strength, you can easily see him playing special teams and earning himself a special teams role. A guy that's fast and can hit you really hard and is feisty. Also, what's really great about this is that you can actually see him maybe playing a little bit behind Orlando Scandrick, who was injured last year. We do need a Scandrick back, and I think that's going to play a big role in the Dallas Cowboys just getting back. Getting guys healthy is a draft in itself at this point. But to me, he's the diamond in the rough, and to me, for all those reasons that I just mentioned, pay attention to Anthony Brown in the 6th round. I think he's the gem pick of the draft, and this bolstered my B grade. Because as soon as I seen the measurables, he is so feisty. You can just tell you can just tell how he tracks down the football. I mean, he plays the player, he plays the ball, he looks really good. Now, this is kind of where the Dallas Cowboys were just kind of taking shot in the dark picks in the 6th round. They picked a running back, Darius Jackson. I go over detail in my previous videos. I'm not going to link a video above. But Darius Jackson, again, he's got some solid he looks like a running back. Got thick legs, can run the football, and he can go vertical with the pass catching. But we already got 4 running backs on the roster if you include Ezekiel Elliott. And I already mentioned Alfred Morris, Darren McFadden, also Lance Dunbar, we just re-signed again. So to me, Darius Jackson is out of Eastern Michigan. He'll probably find himself a team in the NFL, but I don't think it's going to be with the Dallas Cowboys, but he does look good as a prospect. The last pick, which is kind of interesting, is Rico Gathers out of Baylor, the tight end. Now, he's tall, and he played basketball. This guy has not played football in about a decade. He played up until senior year at Baylor as a basketball player. He has not played college. He's not played any college football. He's not played any high school football. The last time this guy played football was in the 7th and 8th grade. Rico Gathers. Look him up. I'll put in some highlights. You can go back in my videos and put up highlights of Rico Gathers. This is a very interesting shot in the dark pick by the Dallas Cowboys. This was their last pick in the NFL draft. And it's just enticing. It's one of those basketball player picks. Who knows? Could he be the next Antonio Gates? Could he be Jimmy Graham? I really don't know. All right, guys, now going back to Ezekiel Elliott, and I just have to because it was our 1st round pick, and we picked at number 4. We have not picked this high since 1991, and the last guy that we picked was Russell Maryland. So it's very important that we got this right, and we got this done just spectacularly. Now, we drafted on need. Now, if you look at the running back position, and this is the reason why I hit the B grade, the more the analytics behind it all, we have to pay Ezekiel Elliott $6.3 million, and most of that's guaranteed money. If you look at $6.3 million in today's NFL running backs, it's not like it's the early 2000s. In fact, actually, the last running back that actually went all-pro, that was picked in the top 5, do you want to guess who that was? Take a guess. It was LaDainian Tomlinson, guys. And that's really the quintessential thing behind this, is that picking number 4 at the running back position is really hard because the history and stats don't support it. I just gave you Alfred Morris and what he was capable of since 2011. Alfred Morris has been the 8th leading rusher in the NFL. Actually, he's in front of Jamal Charles in that category and just a little bit behind Matt Forte since 2011. And the last running back that was taken in the top 5, it was Trent Richardson. And so that's kind of hard when you look at that. Trent Richardson, it's just a perennial bust, 3.1 yards per carry type of guy. And you look at these stats even further with the running back positions, it gets even more bleak. So among the top 10 rushers since 2011, guys, only 3 of them were picked in the 1st round, and namely Adrian Peterson. So when you look at these top 8 rushers, Alfred Morris is on this list, Matt Forte is on this list, Chris Johnson's on this list. I mean, and I can just keep on going on. And so that really plays heavily in the B grade. The fact that we didn't address our needs relatively until the 3rd round. Look, Jalen Smith is going to be a stud, hopefully, and hopefully he can heal, because Sean Lee, can he play it at full NFL season? I mean, it's just not looking like he can just hold up. He's been our last great 2nd round pick. He's been great. He's a leader. He's kind of like the Jason Witten if he was healthy on the defense. And could you imagine Sean Lee and Jalen Smith right next to each other? Jalen Smith has that versatility where he can go left to right. Sean Lee can... I mean, could you just imagine our team? But we need defensive ends, guys. And we just failed to nail that. And that really played a pivotal part in my B grade draft. Tell me what you think, like, comment, and, just overall, hopefully you can look at the highlights. I broke down everything for you. All right, guys, so that is officially my Dallas Cowboys grade is a B, and that's the reason. Thank you for watching.